Right. So this is interesting, shall we say? Um, I can't remember last time I did do some probably a couple of years ago, but not with any kind of determination other than just to sort of play around with it, I suppose. So I got these brushes from Timo. Look at these things. Right, that's magnificent. I'm not sure what kind of brush it is yet, but look at that. Okay, there's three of those, all in a little for a fiver. That's just crazy money. Now, my thing in watercolor was always you should use the best brushes, i.e., they should be not real. Sable, sorry, sable. So let's see what happens with these because they feel all right. I feel all right. As I say, I've not done this for a long time, so don't expect too much from this. They're full of gum arabic by the looks of it, or some kind of gum that's on them to give them shape. Whether they'll keep the shape or not is another matter. So still give me shape. It smells like gum arabic. I've got some Winsor Newton, just cheap Coleman pans. They look familiar. I mean, lemon yellow. That's a kind of a permanent rose, or I suppose it is a permanent rose, ultramarine. But Payne's grey, by the looks of it, kind of cerulean. Yellow ochre, obviously burnt umber. I think that's a dark green, I think that. Another green, and then black, obviously, and then white, which I'll probably never use, but you never know. So this is cheap stuff, and some cheap paper that somebody gave me. This is Coleman paper as well. So, but it looks like it's cold pressed. You know, it's got that texture like it's being pressed into it afterwards. So it's 300 grams. So we'll see. We'll see. So I'm gonna draw this thing first. I used to. I mean, I don't think it really matters, but I used to just paint. I wouldn't draw, and then colour it in. I did to start with. You know, when I was sort of a teenager and didn't know any better. You know, the outlines and colouring them in thing. I used to do that, but then I saw what Sargent did and thought, well, if he didn't have to put outlines around things, then I don't have to put. I mean, he still made marks because it's as I'm doing now. You've got to sort of locate things without too much commitment to it, and then you roughly know where you're going to be painting. But we'll see. We'll see how this develops. Like I say, I'm not too sure about this at all. So you'll have to forgive me if this is an utter and total mess. I'm trying to apply the charcoal approach. Basically, that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing it as if it's done in charcoal, and I'm a bit kind of overcautious at the moment, so I'm doing a little bit more than I need to do, which is what I do with it. I've been into drawing it now, so I'm trying not to get to that point. If I can just get some idea of where everything is, I can then start throwing the paint on and see what happens. Yeah, I'm not going to get too deep into that. So I'm going to, this thing about light to dark. Saw that the other day, and somebody said, I forgot that you have to work light to dark. No, what you have to work, basically, and I'm going to get a bit technical now because it's what I did all them years ago. You have to go from a non-staining to staining, sedimentary and then staining. So your initial paint, what color it might be, needs not to be a staining color. That's the way it works. So if you want to say, I want to use Payne's grey, I think if I remember right, it probably is a non-stain. It's actually not Payne's grey. It's not Payne's grey. It's purple. I could paint it in purple. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Oh, this is Payne's grey. So I'm going to. I'm just going to I'm not going to wet and wet or anything like that, because I'm not really at that point. In fact, you know what? Because this drawing, this face is very brown and orange, I'm going to just draw it, go straight to the colour that I can see. But I'm not. I'm going to do it like charcoal. I'm not going to. I'm not going to do the the painting evenly. I'm going to treat it like it's charcoal. I think one of the things that I'm interested in is that I want it to be. I want it to work. I want to do it like I do it with charcoal, because that's what that's the whole point of this. I'm doing it because, well, somebody said to me, "Does my technique? I want to paint big. Does your technique? Can I use your technique?" And of course, I mean, it's not really a technique. It's just a case of letting go and just doing it, which is what I'm doing now, as you can see. In fact, I'm holding the brush like it's like I'm painting in oils. So which is again is interesting, because I'm not doing the watercolor thing. I think if I was to go back into watercolor, I wouldn't do it. I think it's far too. I see some amazing sort of photographic kind of level watercolors, and that's just, it turns me off completely. I can't do that. I have no interest in doing that. It's just exercising skills, and I don't want that. I don't really, this is, for me, this is much more of a my personal journey, and what I like and don't like, and I think all of that is based on the years ago of when it was a chore. So it's going to be, I'm going to fight against all that. I'm going to fight against the conformity of you must do watercolor like this. As you can see, I'm not really doing anything that's watercolor-esque, in terms of the precision of things. I'm aware of the fact that watercolor will fade, and it will lighten, and it will do all the things that watercolor does. I'm aware of all those things. It was it's technique and skills that I acquired all those years ago, so they may well be still there. But as I say, it's one of the things I remember about watercolor was that when I was painting in Paris, I used to kind of affect the light of the paper with my painting, overall underpainting of wash of rose madder, because of the or permanent rose, because of the way that the light in Paris, in France was. I used to do that. I used to do things like that, and then paint over the top of it, and knowing that I got this ground, if you like, of the rose madder. But yeah, it's I can't say it's coming back to me. I can't. I know. I think I'm more conscious of it being of drawing. Drawing it like I'm working charcoal. I don't think the color thing is something that I'm particularly conscious of. I think I'm definitely in the sort of drawing thing. I tell you what is interesting is that the level of precision. These brushes are great, by the way. Temu, £5, £4.99 it was, free to come. I tell you what, one of the things about brushes is, for me, particularly when I was doing it for real, was that the way that it held paint and then released paint was a big thing for me. These are obviously cheap nylon or whatever they might be brushes, but they're not really hanging on to the paint which is a good thing. And I think that's one of the main things. I remember when I was doing it for real, when I was in the Brighouse Art Circle, and we went down to London with this guy. He was a millionaire, retired, and wanted to be a watercolorist. And we went down to London to see this shop. It's still there now. I can't remember the name. It's some fancy shop in London. And he bought everything. He bought everything that he could get. You know, he bought a sort of fishing tackle type of jacket, so he could put all his brushes and his pencils and whatever else in all these different pockets. And there were brushes like this. There were these kind of, you know, and they were as big as this. I always like, one of the things I do remember about, you know, watercolor is that big brushes are far better they're better for anything, but they're far better to work with than little tiny little brushes. I saw a guy do a demo the other day, and he had the same thing. I mean, his brushes were a little bit small, but there's a lot of us that do it, and it's like, you know, leave the little brushes alone until the very end, and even then resist. You know, it's that kind of thing. This guy bought these brushes, these really fancy brushes from this shop, and I think each one was about, back we're talking 30 years now, and each one was about 70, 80 quid. You know, that's serious money. Back then, it was serious money. I mean, it didn't mean anything to him, but and the funny thing was, it didn't make him any better at being a watercolor artist. And he was really disappointed. I mean, there's no doubt that having the right equipment will make it a lot, you know, a decent brush and everything will make it a lot easier. But it didn't improve him as an artist. It didn't improve his style, and he couldn't draw any better. And I always said to him, because I was working then I was creative director in the studio, but I did, as I've said before, freelance moonlighting illustration, and so I used to get roped in, you know, and I always said to him, I used to get these pencils called sketching pencils. I don't know what hardness they were or softness, but I used to get these pencils. They were great for drawing. And I used to say, so just draw with this, then to draw with this, then to draw with this, and then we'll worry about paint. And I'm a little bit like that. I mean, still I'm like that with charcoal. You know, people talk to me about painting, and I said, just learn to draw first. Learn to draw first, and then you can worry about colour afterwards. Because chances are, once you've learned to draw, and I'm not talking about, you know, your line technique or your cross hatching, and I've just looked at, I've got this thing, I've got a Google Keep thing where I put all the things that sort of strike me, and I looked at this statement earlier. I was at the dentist this morning, so distracting myself was the objective, and I had this. I was looking at the quotes, and I put this quote in there. It said that cross hatching is the devil's work. and it is. It's the people spend time learning to cross hatch. I mean, I only say that because I had to learn to do it for my City and Guilds when I was like 16. I had to, they used to measure. Forget about these people that you see do these daily 30-day sketches, and they're all cross hatching, you know, within an inch of a life. I had to do it, and you look at any old etching where they measure the distance between each of hatches, and that was my City and Guilds. Measure the distance between your hatching. So I've got this. I'm dead against hatching. So, yeah, it was. It was. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this is that I'm going to try and replicate it to some extent, but I'm looking at the other things. And again, we talked to this guy in the demo the other day, and we're talking about the seeing colour. And for me, I think that one of the hardest things for people to get their head around is that the colour that you see isn't the colour that you see. You know, you get this idea that it's going to be flesh tone is pink, you know, but it's not just about flesh. I mean, and the fact that it's reflective and anything that's around it will be part of you know, that colour. It's not just about flesh tones, it's about everything. Everything reflects everything. It's the relationship thing, you know, the relationship of shapes, the relationship of colours, the relationship of tones. It's all of that. It's the and I think that when people, particularly when people ask me, I mean, I'm not really a, you know, oil paint in people's radars in terms of oil painting, so I'm not going to get many people say to me, "How do you mix flesh tones?" But when people do say things like that, I kind of know straight away that they're, you know, they're in the wrong place to start with. So I'm not going to really get into the painting side of it, because they're not even at the point where they should be painting. And I once heard, you know, like in Florence, in these schools where they don't use colour for a year, they just draw. And I get that completely. I think that it needs to be you know, the reason for that needs to be properly examined and understood by the, you know, the recipients, the students. But I get the need to draw before anything else is there, you know, not because you need to draw. I'm going to say, I wasn't talking about it earlier. This thing about cross hatching and drawing is, you know, drawing is observation. That's what it is. And the sooner you learn that, then everything falls into place. So if you can draw, you can paint. It's that kind of thing, you know. It's not a it's not a learning lines or learning how, you know, to fade from one, you know, blend from one color to another, one tone to another. All that is not. All that is just, you know, you get bogged down with technique. People come at you with that sort of complication, shall we say. I wanted to use the word nonsense, but, you know, it's probably a bit insulting to say that. But people will come at you with that, and they'll say, "Oh, you need to, you know, blend like this and hold the pencil this way," and, you know, it's just, you got to be careful with all that sort of stuff, because what happens with that is that you get locked into. I'm still in this idea of different colours, so I'm going to go with. I'm going to put ultramarine into this, because again, there's no point in you know, using something like watercolor, not really exploiting the you know, what it can do, you know, the depth and the subtleties and all the rest of it. There's no point in not doing that. And I think that's probably one of the things that I'm interested in, really, from a you know, will watercolor work kind of thing. I think the other thing as well is that the one thing that I remember about watercolor was that I got this sort of, I was very precious about it. It had to be, you know, I couldn't make mistakes with it. I couldn't use white, because I was kind of a, you know, one of these crazy purist types. And so, you know, purist watercolors don't use white. And so I was in that place, which was crazy, you know. But, you know, I was probably just misguided, shall we say. In fact, I had no guidance whatsoever, so I suppose it was only natural that I'd be like that. It's just that I think that trying to do it and get away from the idea that it has to be perfect, because this is the thing. We've just done if you want to do the workshop in November, don't leave it too late, because I'm just gonna close it off when it gets anywhere near November. So but we just done the thing with in that where we're talking about most of this, by the way, is just at the moment is just the burnt umber and rose madder and the Payne's grey. And part of that, on that course, we talked about the being fearless in your mark making, and as a demo of the thing, I used watercolor because you kind of, once you made the marks with watercolor, that's it, you're in and you can't get back. So you think, but it's not. I don't think it's that unfixable. It's possible to fix anything really. It depends on what you're expecting, and that's another thing. I would say zero expectations is the secret to anything. Certainly with if we're talking about the something like this, I think it's definitely going to be, you're going to have zero expectations, no expectations, because otherwise, you can really, I think it can be a mess. It probably will be a mess anyway, but it's not the to some extent. I think one of the things about as you see with watercolor, it's a lot of fun to use watercolor, and I think if that can be the measure, this thing about, again, one of these quotes that I was looking at, I put in my book, which is, you measure art by the enjoyment, not by the effort, and that I think is from because at the end of the day, we're not going to be some kind of world-changing, world-beating master. You leave that to other people. You leave that to the Russians. They're all locked into that kind of concept. But for us, let's just make art. Let's just make art and enjoy it. I don't want to be called a master. What's be a master? I mean, I would think that would be a curse as much as anything else. Let's just have fun doing it, and see what happens. Now, I'm kind of committing now to some of the darker areas, and building up the densities, because obviously, like with charcoal, you kind of, when you get to a certain point, you can commit to the the tonal values, and I'm kind of doing that, but I'm doing that in terms of the colours. So I'm looking for the color, and obviously this is all drying out, so you can see it's all going through various phases, and I don't mind. I quite like that. I quite like the I quite like the fading in and out thing, and I'm probably going to end up going back over it anyway, because it's gonna just fade out, wash out, if you like, at some point. I can't commit. Some of these, this is wet and wet, I suppose, is what we're talking about here. But that's a major problem if you're trying to get any kind of form to this. Because this bit here, for instance, that's very wet. And in the past, if I'd been doing that, I'd have a hairdryer. In fact, the little old hairdryer that's 30-year-old and stood there is here. So that tells you that a little travel hairdryer covered in charcoal would have been what I was using to speed up the process. But I'm not too worried about it at the moment. I'm going to do other things, and I'm just a bit worried. See, the Payne's grey there is a problem, as you can see, because it's Payne's grey, and it's not a great colour for you know, not for the, because the one thing about watercolor for me is the translucency of it all. So as soon as I see that going, I'll steer clear of any kind of cadmiums or anything that's sedimentary. Because one of the things about, for me, is that, you know, I think the luminosity of watercolor, you know, once you lose that, once it's no longer luminous, once it's not got that amazing kind of transparency, translucency, you've lost it. You know, you can see that some people, and they, you know, they work at it and really make it, I wouldn't say muddy, because they don't make it muddy. What they make it is just flat. And watercolor is about light, and more than anything else, it's about light. It's not about the details, you know, the which is drawing full stop, I suppose. But watercolor is about light. If you lose the light in it, if it becomes too, as I say, flat, you've not taken advantage of what watercolor can do. It's a bit like charcoal, because charcoal does things. Charcoal does things. It does this. You know, the tonal values and things like that, which are easy to easy to simulate. Charcoal does that on its own without your help. You just got to try not to get in the way of it. And watercolors like that as well. You've got to really take advantage of what watercolor does, which is this amazing, as I said, vibrance that it can do. I've got a problem now where I want to make that darker, and then you'll get a Vertex Amos under there. In fact, I might put, I might go underneath the chin there. This is a different thing, because of the charcoal. You don't have to consider these things. You do have with the oils. You're going to consider drying times and things, but with charcoal you don't. So this is a problem that, you know, working on it, and that is one of the things I like about. I talk about this all the time with portraits, is, you know, work on the face all at once, and in a way this is what's happening with this, because I can't work on it any other way. I've got to move around it. I can't just paint it piecemeal, you know, one bit at a time and move across the face. Now, seeing some of these, if you're into watercolor, you'll have seen some of these Chinese kind of guys that do the colouring in things, when they've got an outline and they colour it in. Those kind of watercolors, yeah, you can work on those one bit at a time, because that's what they do. They work on the eyes and they work on the, you know, because it's already drawn. They just got to keep within the lines to some degree, and you know, you cracked it. So. But with this, no, because I'm drawing as much as I'm painting. So so I'm putting this yellow in there because I'm thinking about it being a kind of a ground for the hair that I'm going to try and draw into it. I'm probably going to have to. I don't want to. Use white, but let's just see what happens with if I can wipe this off. The yeah, it's fine. So that, what that tells me there is that these paints that I've used are non-staining paints, because they've not left anything behind. So that was lemon yellow and burnt umber. So neither of those two were staining colours. So it's allowed me to remove. And you could get even more precise with that removal if you wanted to. It's not it's not a worry. That's one of the things I think about watercolor, is that people worry that it, you know, it will be unfixable. You know, an unfixable watercolor. I don't think that's the case if you're using the right colours. I did it. I'll put a link to it on the bottom, but I don't think it applies to everybody's. But I did a kind. I used to have a. I'm looking around now. When I left the firm where I was creative director, they gave me a set of watercolors in a box. I can't find it. I'm looking around now to got it. And in the box itself, I put a breakdown of the colours that I was in the box. You know, staining, non-staining, sedimentary, and it was kind of a. I mean, I knew ultimately. Because I just knew what the colours were, so I didn't have to keep telling myself. But initially, it was good, and it was good. And the amount of people that don't know that, you know, that don't know about staining, non-staining, and sedimentary colours, and yet painting watercolour, because this was the big thing. This is what drove me in the first place. Because I had this guy, and I can't tell you his name because you probably know him anyway, that used to come to our art group and do demos, and really famous, really. You know, wealthy because of his watercolors, and he knew nothing about the pigments, and it didn't matter because he painted scenes of dirty landscapes that were granular and just, you know, and when he painted with sedimentary colors on a rougher paper than this, the sediment in the pigment used to sit in the you know, in the paint, in the furrows in the paper, which gave it a certain texture, and it was this kind of thing, you know. But for me, you know, I was looking at Sargent's Corfu watercolors and thinking, or even Winslow Homer. Or Winslow Homer they were a bit sedimentary, and I was looking at this guys and thinking, oh, why can't he paint in the same way that Sargent was painting his watercolors? He just didn't know. He just didn't know how to do it. And I confronted him a couple of times, and, you know, how dare you kind of thing. But it was, I mean, I don't mind. You can do it however you like. It's just that when you're doing a demo and teaching people, you know, people hang on to every word, don't they? In these demos, it's like, oh, you know, he said this, I'll do that, and didn't realize until, you know, and people. They go to these demos, and it's like, it just so happens that this guy does it in a certain way. It doesn't mean say you have to do it in that way. And as I said, it was quite a thing for me at the time, and frustrating as well, you know, because, you know, I could paint this guy into the ground, but at the time, but here's the guy getting 30 grand for his paintings. And I tell you the reason why that was, because he painted the stuff that people wanted. They wanted the chocolate box scenes. He was that kind of painter. He was a chocolate box painter, and that's what people wanted. If you go to a seaside, there's a thing, you know, this thing about it's called place attachment. It's a psychological thing where you associate something with a place. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's a painting. It could be a rock off the beach that you pick up, and it's you know, it triggers memories, and that's basically what these guys do. Now I've got yellow ochre into this, so what you're seeing now is a sedimentary color. You're actually seeing. Can you see how opaque it is? That's a sedimentary color. The difference. As soon as I put it on, I could feel it. The difference there is completely different. It's completely different. It's a much more, as I say, opaque feel, and probably too soon to be using such an opaque colour. But we'll see. We'll see how it sort of how it pans out. I'm going to fill that in there because it's just annoying me that yeah. So as I said, it's knowing this stuff. I think knowing this stuff is probably for me one of the most important things about watercolor. I don't think I do any kind of watercolor if you see that's a much better. That all that is Payne's grey and burnt umber and permanent rose. But it's better. It's even though that's quite dense down there. This is a better density. A better. It's got more life in it. I need to bring some kind of blue into it in there. I don't know. I just feel it needs to be blue in there, but it might be blue by the time I finish. But yeah. My anaesthetic is wearing off now, so my tooth give me some jip. So if I suddenly stop doing this, it's because I'm in too much pain. But I quite like the idea of distraction, so I'm trying to distract myself from the pain. I don't think anybody really likes the dentist. It's like, it's one of those things in life where, unfortunately, we've got to do it. But anyway, I don't want to moan. I should say this, I suppose, but I went to this demo the other day, as I say, and the guy was, when he had a kind of a flat spot and there was nothing to say, he whistled like a bird. So bless him. He's a great artist, but it was a bit weird. I had it brought back memories for me of the people that used to do demos when I was, as I say, back in the day when I was watching people do this. And there was one in particular. We had this guy that used to stop halfway through and play a tune on the piano or the guitar, and it was just random. It was just like, what the hell is this? And it just to annoy me, terrible. But the type of people that go into these clubs, these art groups, they're not people that are intense about this. They're just, it's pass a few hours and get a cup of tea kind of thing and a natter. So for them, it was great. It was entertaining. It was and they're learning something at the same time. So but it was, for me, I wanted these people to come along and do it properly. I wanted it to be serious. I've always been a bit intense, but I was very intense about this. It had to be done. I'm not messing about here. So it just used to annoy me, as I say. In fact, I think one of the reasons why I stopped going to these groups was because of that, because it wasn't. And when I came back, I was looking for groups that maybe had moved on from the let's entertain you kind of thing, and they wanted to, seriously wanted to know how to draw portraits or whatever, and I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any groups that were serious about doing this. And then I did find like sort of academic type groups. I found a few that were art groups that were more into anarchy than art. I found a few of them. But I didn't really, the ones that are really sort of academic, just the other way. They're the opposite way of these people that wanted entertaining, so I didn't have much luck really. And so I didn't bother anyway, I think I'm I don't like the idea of just being a loner, but I think that's what I am. I think that's what my art journey is, a very solitary thing. So I'm still using the three colours, Payne's grey, 4 colours, Payne's grey, burnt umber, rose madder and lemon yellow, and a touch of ultramarine, so 5 colours. Keeping away from the ochre because of its because they're sedimentary nature. I'm deliberately going a bit sort of strong with some of these colours because I want it to be a little bit more than, you know, and stronger. I want it to be stronger than I'm getting it, and so I'm deliberately upping these, knowing that they're going to dry lighter anyway. So that's the intention. That's the reason why I'm doing it like this. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how it dries anyway. I think it's a bit of a mishmash of things. The brush is good, considering the price. It's superb, but I think the rest of it is a little bit. What am I say? It's a little bit. I think, if anything, I think it would probably be overworked. You could say it was overworked, but I'm not too bothered about the. That as a thing, more of knowing that I can fix it. I think more of a because it's I'm trying to do it in the charcoal way. I'm trying to do it as if I was drawing with charcoal. So I'm probably going to end up with I take things away from it as much as I put back. What's interesting as well, I'm not really bothered about using other brushes. This is one of the things when I first left college and I went into a design studio. It was everybody, most people at that time could draw, and most people at that time did illustration as well. Different kind of agencies, different kind of design studios. What they are now, they're advertising agencies that have graphic designers, and it's nearly always done on computers, or with a tablet of some kind. And the first thing they said to me was to get a good brush, and the go-to brush at the time was the Winsor & Newton Series 3A, and everybody used that brush, and you used just one brush for everything. You didn't use a finer brush for this and finer brush for that. You were taught how to get a point on a brush, and it was a number 6. Everybody used a number 6, and it was the guys that were the kingpins in the studio would show you how to get a point on a number 6. So you didn't use any other brush. That's the only brush you use, which is good, which is great. It's like you didn't spend loads of money on brushes. It was just, and it was commercial. That's, people knew what they were doing. They weren't messing about. It wasn't some art college thing that when you come out of art college you know nothing, and it wasn't when I did graphic design, coming out and knowing nothing, I presented with something called Rubylith and thinking, what the hell is this, for knockouts as they call it, and your artwork. And as I said, it was how it should be. The old pros were passing on their knowledge, and that that's a thing. The craft side of things, I think that's something that is sadly missing. That and certainly in the design world, I'm not sure in this world it makes any difference. I'm not saying that craft is a particularly important thing. It's important to know that craft isn't art, and that's a sort of a contradiction to some people, but it's true, and most people can't get their head around that. So it's it's very complicated for some people. Art and craft is the one and the same, and And you know, they'll live by that. They'll live by the fact that it's one in the same. And it's how they'll evolve. They'll evolve as an artist using craft as their aim, their goal, their reason to do it. You know, and all that brings, because that, you know, that in itself, as soon as you become craft orientated and skill orientated and technique orientated, and then right there you've got your work cut out straight away. That's when practice becomes important. That's when, you know, equipment becomes important, because all of those things are connected. You know, knowledge is important because all of those things are connected. And that's not, for me, I think that's probably the number one problem that people have, is that they're sort of in this treadmill of technique and skill, and it has to be, you know, it has to be practiced and learned, and I'm working on this skill and I'm working on that skill. You see it all the time. You know, I see it all the time in these groups. I'm working on my shading or what others say. And there's your problems. There's the reason why people have problems doing this. They're not prepared to let go and just do this. You know, have fun, whether it works or not, you know, it doesn't really matter. And I think the secret to that letting go thing is this being able to draw. If you can draw, you're almost there. You know, I mean, obviously there are certain things that will have an impact, but generally speaking, if you can draw, you can paint, you can use pastels, you can use whatever. Like I said earlier, the drawing isn't about hatching. Drawing is about seeing. And if you can see color, if you can see lines, if you can see tone, then and shapes, then you can use anything. You can use whatever medium you want, and it'll work or it won't. It doesn't really matter. That's another thing about it, is that, you know, people get hung up on the perfection of things, and you really got to just let go of that. I think that one of the things about charcoal, what charcoal does is that, and if you give into it, what it does is it teaches that you just got to let it do its thing. You've got to give into it and accept it for what it is. You can't really force it to do anything. And people that come from using pencil, for instance, without all that control, you know, you get with pencil, graphite, struggle with charcoal, because all of a sudden they haven't got that control. You know, it's no longer you know, a few sort of delicate scribbles and you gradually build up the tones. You don't get that. You're in straight away. There's a tone there, right there, and it's doing it. You know, people get this problem of that's another thing as well. Another thing as well is, by the way, working upright is a thing that in watercolor terms I would never have done. I would never have worked upright. It's just you know, it makes no sense, because it's just going to run down the paper. Now, I've seen this Chinese guy that paints in watercolor, and he works upright, and he's turning it all the time, and he's getting the paint to flow in a certain way. Amazing. I mean, he's not one of these outline and coloring type of watercolorists. His works is amazing, and but that's what he does. He works upright, and he just basically controls the flow by turning the paper around. He also uses a hairdryer as well, so he blow it in a certain direction and things, you know, which is good. I mean, to me that's it's a technique, but at the same time, I do that. If I was serious about doing this, I would be doing that. I'd be using the hairdryer and moving the paper around, and you know. But as I said, I just wanted to see what would happen with this. As you can see, the problems we've got at the moment is that this needs fixing because of it's just too wet and I can't make it dark enough. The same with the cheek, although I kind of like the breakdown of the colours that's happening here. So, but this needs to be darker, as it does there, and then up there, and then round there, and then up there. But you know, that's these cheap Temu brushes, which are these they'll unscrew and the travel watercolor travel brushes, it says, and you've got them in a, screw them back in again like that, and then stick them in one of these. It's in a little leather case. So that's awesome. That's awesome. I also got a little like a travel clip on the top of your pad, which flipped up, and this, and got water in it and all that kind of thing. Very fancy. I don't think I'm a kind of plein air type portrait artist, but you never know. I might do that as well. But I'm going to leave that to dry because it's just not going to. I'm not going to be able to get the density, and all that will happen is it's just going to go and just get even more muddy, I suppose. That's the best way to describe it. But I quite like, because the charcoal, I did that this morning before the dentist visit, and I quite like the breakdown of the medium. When it's not doing what it's supposed to do, and I quite like using that, exploiting that, and leaving that, and that's kind of what this is doing. So some of this bleeding and running and things like that, I'm going to leave that. I'm probably going to just white out some of this, so I'll use cleaner water and then just sort of take it away. So sort out the end of the nose, for instance, there. But I'm going to leave it for now. Just to, it's one of those things. I'm afraid you gotta just take your time with it. But what's interesting more than anything else was this. I wanted to basically do the charcoal approach to watercolors, and see if that's a doable thing, as opposed to it being a traditional kind of watercolor thing. So I'm just trying to get this a bit more. I'll end up doing a lot of this. I think a lot of this kind of cleaning up thing, just so I can get it to be more a little bit more accurate. Right, I better go because the cat's at the door and he wants to come in. So I'll catch you later. Look out for it. I'll put it on the socials when I finished it. So you see how it turned out.